2009, Zack Snyder's Watchmen asked us, who watches The Watchmen? Well, I watched it this week, and I can't wait to talk about it. In a gritty and alternate 1985, the glory days of costume vigilantes have been brought to a close by government crackdown, but after one of the masked veterans is brutally murdered, an investigation to the killer is initiated. The reunited heroes are set out to prevent their own destruction, but in doing so uncover a sinister plot that puts all of humanity in grave danger. So in 2009, I went to the theater and watched Watchmen opening weekend and was blown away by it. I felt like Zack Snyder was able to reinterpret this graphic novel and basically bring scenes from those graphic pages to the big screen, and I felt like I was just watching the comic play out in front of me. Some really great performances, specifically from Earle Haley as Rorschach here, really just made me love this film. And what I also really enjoyed about it was the people were kind of turned off by it. Like, this wasn't like just a normal X-Men film or a Spider-Man movie. No, this was a rated R film that had big blue dong in front of you, some brutal kills, and some really craziness that does happen. It was violent, it was in your face, and it didn't care if you liked it or not. And I totally respect that. It's been one of my favorite comic book iterations for such a long time, so going back and revisiting was something that I wanted to do this year, but I also wanted to do a first-time watch. And what I mean by that, there was another version of this film that's just not the theatrical version. There's this cut that I found, and that is the Ultimate Cut and the complete story. What does that mean? It means that in this film, it's not just what Zack Snyder brought to us in 2009, but there's also, and if you're a fan of the comic book, there is a character in there that does read this comic book called the Black Freighter. And the Black Freighter is also interpreted in this as well in the form of animation. So as the film goes along, you're going to get some scenes where this guy is going to be reading this comic, and there's going to be some animation sequences added to it. So there's about 45 more minutes of runtime. So this movie is a 3.5-hour film that I sat through for this ultimate cut of Watchmen. And I gotta say, being a first-time watch, it flew by. I really enjoyed this experience of watching it. The Black Freighter stuff, while it's definitely different and unique because it's animated and it's a completely different kind of story. It takes place as this guy who is lost at sea in a shipwreck, and he's trying to get back to save his family, and there's some weird zombie kind of stuff going on. And while it's interesting, but I do want to get back to see what happened to our costume heroes here. So I encourage, if you are a big fan of Watchmen, go check out the Ultimate Cut and watch the Black Freighter stuff, because if you're reading the comic, you're going to be reading those lines of dialogue anyway, so you might as well experience it as a whole. And again, 3.5 hours seems like a daunting task. However, it does, if you're a fan of the source material, it's going to fly by for you. So for me, I was able, with my wife, and actually my wife, who is maybe not as big a fan of the source material as I am, enjoyed the heck out of the film too. And she's like, this was really a lot of fun, and she hadn't seen this film before. So take that as you will. But let's talk about these characters of the Watchmen. Let's talk about this cast first off. This is probably a really cool ensemble cast with a total 2009 cast. This is a pretty awesome star-studded lineup here. Malin Ackerman, Patrick Wilson, Billy Crudup, Matthew Good, Earle Haley, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and the great Carlo Gugino, just to name a few people here. And again, this is directed by Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder knows how to do comic book movies. He does have his own kind of flair to it. He's not shy with how he films. He's going to film these films very similarly. There's going to be some slow motion stuff. There's going to be some really close-ups as well. He sticks to the same formula, but it works, especially in Watchmen. It works with his style of filmmaking here too. He's, of course, not a stranger to the comic book genre or the graphic novel genre, I should say, because he's done movies like 300. He's done Man of Steel, the Batman vs Superman, and the Zack Snyder Justice League as well. And those movies are entertaining and exciting. However, I'm a huge fan of Watchmen. That's where I was always kind of drawn with Zack Snyder. Watchmen and Dawn of the Dead have been my two highest rated Zack Snyder projects that he's done, and loved those that he's done these two. Watchmen has a great performance here that I just want to completely shout out. Earle Haley, before this movie came out, I really didn't know who he was. I do know that he played in Bad News Bears, and I had seen that movie as a kid, and he was awesome in that one, but had never seen him in anything else until like this movie came out. And then as I was like watching this movie, I'm like, this guy has blown up since. Like, I think the year before he was in a movie, Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell. He was kind of like the stoner burnout character in that movie. And then, of course, he did Shutter Island in the upcoming years with Scorsese. But Jackie Earle Haley just gives us great performance as Rorschach. And I can't picture anybody else playing that character. He is super fascinating. I just want to like get more into that mind, that creepy, like disastrous mind. Because I know I'm not going to like what I find in it, but there's just something about that character that you understand why he's acting and doing the things he's doing because of just the blind, stare that Jackie Earle Haley has when he doesn't have his face on. Patrick Wilson and Malin Ackerman, there are some recognizable faces there. Patrick Wilson definitely blew up in like some other horror franchises, and he's of course also no stranger to superhero movies. He's of course Aquaman's brother in the Aquaman franchise. Malin Ackerman, funny enough, also was in a movie that my wife really loves that we just watched recently called Couples Retreat. She definitely was in this like early 2000 or late 2000s, like early 2000 teens era of like films. So she was like all over the place, from Couples Retreat, like obviously Watchmen, Heartbreak Kid, just the movies off the top of my head. But I remember seeing her pop up all over the place. So I was not like surprised that she was in this movie. Of course, we dig deeper in the cast. I think this is one of my first times I remember seeing like a Jeffrey Dean Morgan and a Carlo Gugino, and actors that had been around for a while, but nothing in like projects that I could like call out. Like this is what they were. I saw them from. If I wouldn't have their IMDb page, I probably could say, "Oh, I've saw that movie before Watchmen," but just nothing that I recognized right off the top of my head. So seeing these actors, I was like, well, blown away by their performances here. Matthew Goode also as Ozymandias, total like douchebag type of character. Just fascinating what he was able to do with this one. As another actor out of the whole cast, probably hasn't done as much as anybody else here. But still just done a really, like, he's done some really good projects, high caliber projects like Imitation Game, which was a big Oscar nominated film a couple years ago. A Single Man also came in 2009. He was also in that film. But Watchmen is the second film listed on his Letterboxd page. Of course, he's done some other films along the way. But Matthew Goode is the one actor that doesn't have the greatest, like, the resume that everybody else has. He didn't seem to blow up as much, but he's really good in this film. The other characters like Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the comedian, such a despicable character, but as you like get along in the movie, you kind of feel for him at the same time because there is some repentance there. But just he plays it so sleazy and so crummy that you just despise this guy, and you can totally see where like the creators of The Walking Dead are like, yeah, that's going to be our Negan character because he fits perfectly into that role. There. And Carla Gugino, I remembered her having a lot more screen time in the film when way back then, but so I was kind of surprised, like, oh, she's hardly really in it at all, but she's awesome. Whenever she's popped on the screen, she's always given it 100%. It's kind of like just radiates off the screen, and having her be Malin Ackerman's mother, it's actually kind of really good casting. I can kind of totally see that, those performances there. There's some really good, awesome set pieces here. The first like big fight sequence in the comedian's apartment, right off the jump, with this mysterious man fighting him, and where we get to see the comedian's death right off the jump, came straight from the comic book page, and it was shot beautifully. And again, that flair and that stylistic style that Zack Snyder does have here with the slow motion stuff wasn't overstated, but it also kind of made the material even better there, and it kind of made it seem to be really kind of pop off the screen here. And I love also how that every character kind of got a backstory as well, got a kind of little homage to how they got started into being a costume vigilante, with one of the more heartbreaking stories being the Dr. Manhattan story, which is the character that a lot of people, I remember in 2009, kind of turned off by. And I remember people with their kids in the theater of this movie walking out because, like, I make a joke about the big blue dong in your face, but yeah, there is that, and especially when he can change his size, like how tall he is in the frame. Yeah, Dr. Manhattan is a character who definitely walks around naked quite a bit here. However, I'm not really paying attention to that stuff anyway, so I'm not really like noticing it. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, put some pants on, show some dignity, I guess, a little bit. But his story is kind of truly heartbreaking, seeing that kind of play off. Billy Crudup is like kind of really good casted for this character because he brings that kind of like, he's not the strongest looking guy, but he also plays this really powerful character, and he was able to emote like hardly no emotions, and if he does emote an emotion, it's very subtle. So Crudup does a really great job here. And again, another actor who was recently, like, he was casted in Zack Snyder's universe again, with he playing the Flash's dad in one of those Justice League movies. So, yeah, Zack Snyder's Justice League. So he was in that as well. So Crudup, again, very familiar face in Zack Snyder's movies here. Again, the cast is really well done, but the real standout and star for me is the way it's shot. It's beautiful. It feels dirty and grimy, like the world it is in. The big negative here is that we do focus there. If you watch the Ultimate Cut, there's not as many scenes. There is still the amount of scenes, but it's more paced out because you have the Black Vader stuff in it. But the Richard Nixon stuff is very noticeably bad. The makeup for Richard Nixon is really, really bad. And the guy's accent goes in and out quite a bit, so it's not a really good performance from that actor. But with that said, the alternate reality of Richard Nixon getting like 3 to 4, 5 terms as president is also something that is really hard to believe. And this graphic novel did come out way before a lot of the revisionist history movies that we've been giving, like for instance Tarantino has done a lot of like revisionist history kind of stuff, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Glorious Bastards. Now there's other directors that have done this as well, but he's the first one that came to mind. This movie does have a lot of revisionist history stuff, where like who assassinated JFK is in there, the Richard Nixon stuff. So it's interesting to see like this alternate like universe that could be there. Watchmen has been just one of those movies that I've always been resonated with because of just how different it looked and a different take on these superheroes. It reminds me of a lot of like that show The Boys. Like I feel like if The Boys came out in 2009, it would look a lot like Watchmen. And if they would redo Watchmen today, it would look like The Boys. I really kind of think about that's kind of like the best comparison you can make, because these heroes are not likable at all, but you can understand their motives that they're behind. You can understand them as well. And I know they did make an HBO Max show with Regina King, and I really enjoyed that as well. A lot of different tie-ins to the film. The show is fantastic and a good little addition to the movie here as well. Well, that's my quick thoughts, takes, and opinions on Watchmen. And I did watch the Ultimate Cut, which had the Black Vader stuff in it. And the Black Vader stuff was fun because Gerard Butler plays the lead here. Very fun to see him added to the star-studded lineup here as well. So that's what I thought about the movie. What did you guys think about it? Do you guys love the theatrical version, and have you guys seen the Ultimate Cut with the Black Vader stuff? Let me know in the comments section down below what you guys thought, and make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you liked the video. So until next time, my name is Adam, and I will see you in the next one.